Good morning, beautiful people. This is Pastor Eric, Associate Pastor at Lyndhurst Baptist Church on the west side of Indianapolis and Indiana State Chaplain for Broken Chains, with the encouraging word for Tuesday, December 30th, 2025. And so we will be continuing with our day by day with the Church Fathers devotional. And today's devotion is entitled True Humility by John Chrysostom. And the scripture verse is particularly convicting and challenging today, Proverbs 30, which says, "There is a generation that are pure in their own eyes, and yet is not washed from their filthiness." And John Chrysostom writes, "In whatever you do for a fellow servant, remember that your master has done it to your servants. Listen and shudder. Never be pleased by your humility." Perhaps you laugh at that statement as if humility could puff you up, but don't be surprised if it puffs you up when it isn't genuine. How and in what way could it do this? When it is practiced to gain human favor and not God's favor. When it is practiced so that we could be praised and be considered great, for this is of the devil. Those who boast because they aren't boastful please themselves by their humility and high regard. Have you done any act out of humility? Don't be proud of it. Otherwise, all of its merit is lost. The Pharisee was like this. He was puffed up because he gave his tithes to the poor, and as a result, he lost the honor of the deed. But not so with the tax collector, nor with Paul, who said, "I know nothing by myself, yet am I not hereby justified." See how he doesn't exalt himself, but in every way lowers and humbles himself, even when he had arrived at the summit. When you are thinking about admiring yourself because you are humble, consider your master. Remember what he descended into, and you won't admire or praise yourself anymore. It's good reading for today. It reminds me a little bit of the joke about the person who won an award for humility, but then lost it because he told people about it. And humility and humbleness is not a value that is particularly valued in our culture in 21st century America, or really anywhere in the world in many ways. And yet Scripture has a lot to say about humility. Just a few. James 4:6, "God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble." 1 Peter 5:5-6, "Clothe yourselves with humility towards one another, because God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up at the proper time." We seem to admire and lift up those many people who are braggarts and love to boast of their accomplishments, or even the accomplishments of their country. And I suppose that's all well and good if you're not a person of faith or a follower of Jesus. But for those of us who call ourselves followers of Jesus, we are called to imitate Christ, who was the ultimate example of humility. And not only did he give up his throne to be born into human flesh and to live not in a palace, but he was born in a stable, laid in a manger, was raised by a carpenter from a city that had the reputation of having no good thing come from it. Proverbs 11:2 says, "When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom." And again in Proverbs 33, "Humility comes before honor." Ephesians 4:2, be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another. So what are the qualities that we are lifting up? What are the qualities that we are exalting in the church and in the lives of Christians? I posted something the other day. It was a little meme that told about Russ Ellison, I believe, former editor for Christianity Today, telling a story about how many pastors had come to him and sharing that they had been preaching on the Beatitudes, and when they were, after they were done or after the service, people came up to him and accused him of going woke. Where did you come up with these liberal ideas? And he said, it's Christ's Sermon on the Mount. And they said, well, that doesn't work today. And we need to be careful and guard against that mentality. Philippians 2:3, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself. It's not about you. Luke 14:11, for everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. I've seen in recent weeks articles, questions posted in various Christian groups on Facebook about why are people leaving the church. And quite honestly, as I read some of these responses, it is so clear to me how out of touch Christians are with the communities that they live in. Because all of the answers, or almost all of the answers, are exactly what you would expect from people who live in a Christian bubble, an echo chamber. I think that when you talk to people about why they have left the church, why their faith has deconstructed, if you will, in so many cases, it's that they have been taught such a rigid, finite view of who God is. They have left no room for the mystery of God. They've got it all figured out. And then they face the real world, or the reality of the world that people live in. And there is nothing in their theology and in their way of being that accommodates for that. And so their faith shatters because they have left no room for the mystery of God. And Paul speaks about the mystery of God. The psalmist said his ways are not our ways. We should never be overconfident. Yes, we have assurance of salvation, but that salvation is utterly dependent upon the grace of God. There is no room for pride in the life of a believer. You know, Jesus's followers, his closest 12, 11, but 12, didn't understand when Jesus washed their feet at the Last Supper, because that was the job for a servant, someone who they might not have even known their name, and to have Jesus, who was their rabbi, their teacher, humble himself in that way was astounding to them. And that's why Peter said, no, you're never going to wash any of me. And of course, Jesus' response was, if I don't do this, you will have no part of me. And Peter, blessed Peter that he is, said, hey, if that's the case, then wash not only my feet, but wash all of me. The world needs to see the authentic Jesus Christ, not the Christ that says one thing, not the Pharisees who majored in the law and yet were complete hypocrites. Jesus said they strained at gnats and they swallowed camels. They were all about the letter of the law. They were so zealous for the letter of the law, they created their own laws that were farther, that went farther than God ever intended to, and they focused on that, and yet they neglected the greater things of the law like justice and mercy. Those are not woke ideals. Those are not liberal ideas. Those are Jesus ideals. Period. And so that is what the world needs to see. People who are a people of humility, of grace, of mercy, and love. That is what is going to draw people into an authentic relationship with Jesus Christ. And we are the ones who are called to be ambassadors of reconciliation. And so as we go out and we live our lives, as we do the jobs that God has called us to do, let us do it with grace and mercy. Let us do everything we do as unto the Lord. That is your encouraging word for today. God bless.